vote for the Democratic Party, and yet they're going to make her nominee. Now, I watched it last night, and Democrats, they think they've cracked the code for how to appeal to normal Americans. Did you watch last night? Are they going to change their policy? No. But now, they're distributing camo hats with Kamala Harris's name on them. That's their strategy for appealing to rural voters and veterans, is a camo hat with Kamala Harris's name on it. Now, you know what I think would appeal to rural voters and veterans, Kamala? Not having a running mate who lies about his service record. Why don't we try that? You see, Tim Walz says that he served in a war zone. And it turns out the closest he ever got to war is when he let rioters burn down the city of Minneapolis under his watch in the summer of 2020. Remember that? Now let's just reflect, now that we're in day 3 of the Democrat National Convention, how bizarre it is that they're doing some of the things that they're doing. Normally, conventions, they celebrate nominees who are elected by the people. And let's remind ourselves, how many votes has Kamala Harris won in the Democratic primary? 0. 0, that's exactly right. 10 million illegal aliens, but 0 votes. That is the record of Kamala Harris. Now remember, the party bosses installed Kamala Harris because they can control her. That's all this is about. Her agenda is not an agenda for the American people. It's an agenda for the people who have gotten rich off the decline of this country, and we are not going to take it. Are we? Now remember, it was her donors, it was Kamala Harris's donors who got rich when we shipped millions of manufacturing jobs off to China and other countries. Americans, we got poor. Her donors got rich when America printed trillions of dollars to fund her green scam policies, but Americans, we paid higher prices for groceries and housing because of it. And now her party wants more power, and the way they're going to do it is that she wants to give all those illegal aliens the right to vote. But out here in the state of North Carolina, we believe the only people who get to vote in our elections are the people who have a right to be here, not illegal aliens, Kamala Harris. And this November, starting right here in the great state of North Carolina, we're going to send a message to the corrupt leaders of this country. We do not need a president selected by power brokers. We need a president for the people, and that's why we're going to send Donald J. Trump back to the White House. There is so much at stake in this election. Think of everything that this country has endured over the last 4 years of Kamala Harris's broken leadership. Prices are up and wages down. Our borders are wide open, but we've had a lot of factories closing down. Fentanyl is available on every street corner from North Carolina to Wisconsin, but it is impossible for young Americans to find an affordable home to raise their families in. Now, Donald J. Trump represents something that so many in this country need right now, and I think it's important to recognize that we need hope in the United States of America. Hope that we can reignite this economy and bring back prosperity to American citizens. Hope that we can raise our kids in secure neighborhoods and safe streets. Hope that we can renew the patriotism that binds us as a country together, one nation under God. My friends, for a lot of us, for a lot of the people that we fight for, the American dream seems out of reach today, the most out of reach it's been in a generation. But in 75 days, we're going to save the dreams of every single American, and it will mark the beginning of the future all of us deserve, and we're going to do it together. Now, we're here to talk about national security today, and saving the American dream, let's be honest, it starts with peace. Peace in our neighborhoods, peace in our cities, and peace at the southern border. Lord willing, we bring back the leadership of Donald J. Trump, we're going to have peace all over the entire world. He did it once before, and I think he's going to do it again. Now, if we don't have safety for our families, if we don't have security for our country, we don't have anything. And I'm a firm believer that when we talk about national security starts right here at home, right here in the great state of North Carolina. And there's been no greater area where Kamala Harris has failed to deliver peace and national security than at the American southern border. It is a disgrace, my friends. I cannot believe how bad it is. Now, the media will lie to you and tell you that she was never the border czar. You heard that? Even though they all said she was the border czar for 3.5 years. And remember that as border czar, Kamala Harris has allowed a literal invasion of this country, more than 10 million illegal aliens, and she's refused to deport the people who are already here. So that makes about 25 million illegal aliens that are in this country right now. Now, our brave Border Patrol officers, they plead, they beg for her support. I was down there at the southern border and I saw it. Giant sections of President Trump's border wall sit right there, rusting, waiting to be installed, but she refuses to do her job. And you think it's bad now? If we give Kamala Harris a promotion and make her the President of the United States, the southern border is going to look like Walmart on Black Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be no good, no fun at all. Now, while she offers amnesty for the people who've broken our laws, we have a different message. President Trump and I have a different message. To all the criminal illegals who flooded across Kamala's wide open southern border, pack your bags because in 6 months, you are going home. Now, just weeks ago, I actually visited the southern border, which means that I've visited the southern border more than our borders are, Kamala Harris. I saw where little girls are trafficked by the drug cartels, some of the most vile people in the world taking advantage of innocent little children and making money off of them. I met a rancher who endured violent criminals raiding his land. Just a rancher in Arizona trying to get by. And I see the desperation of families torn apart by the fentanyl and all the other poison the cartels are bringing into our country. Now, I know the hurt of that poison very personally. A lot of you know my story. I remember being a kid whose mom struggled with addiction. I remember waiting at the bedside of my mom, angry that she had taken something that she shouldn't have taken, but just praying, Lord Jesus, please let her wake up. Let her make it through this time. And we got to remember, my friends, because of Kamala Harris's border policies, way too many of our loved ones are not waking up. Way too many kids have been orphaned. Way too many grandparents are raising kids they didn't expect to raise because Kamala Harris allowed the drug cartels to wage war on this country. I think it's time to wage war on the drug cartels, and that's going to start with Donald Trump's leadership. Now, the president's going to be here in just a few minutes, but I almost feel bad for him. Because this is not the first time that Donald Trump is going to have to clean up somebody else's mess. Now remember, in 2016, he took over from Barack Obama, who let ISIS spread mayhem all over the world. Then Trump came along, and in a couple weeks did what the media said could not be done. He wiped him off the face of the earth. And remember, when we win this November, and it's going to start right here in North Carolina, I think the cartels are next. We're going to do just to them what Donald Trump did to ISIS. Now, I will admit it is hard to make sense of Kamala Harris's foreign policy, especially when she explains it like a third grader who didn't study for a class presentation. Have you ever seen Kamala talk about the Ukraine-Russia war? I'd recommend you go and see it, but wait until November, because you're going to lose about 20 IQ points when you watch Kamala Harris talk about Russia and Ukraine, and we need that over the next few months. We need you guys in top form, so don't watch it just yet. But she'll say, well, Ukraine is a country in Europe, and Russia's a country in Europe. And then you say, okay, well, what comes next, Kamala? And the answer is nothing comes next because she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. But if you want to give her the benefit of the doubt and understand her foreign policy, remember that she bragged on CNN about playing a key role in the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, that was before 13 innocent service members died at the Kabul airport. That was about 3 years ago to the day. That was before the world witnessed panicked civilians cling to the sides of retreating American airplanes. And that was before they gave the Taliban billions of dollars paid for by you, billions of dollars of helicopters, planes, Humvees, and artillery. It was the worst humiliation this country has endured since the fall of Saigon, and Kamala Harris says she's proud of what she did. It was treason, and is it any wonder that Putin then invaded Ukraine on her watch? Or that Iran attacked Israel on her watch? Or that this very moment China is ramping up its aggression against Taiwan on her watch, when Kamala Harris walks in the room America's enemies sense weakness. And that's why we have got to fire Kamala Harris, not give her a promotion. Now, she wants to represent America all over the world, but she's terrified to face a friendly media. Does anyone think that the person who runs from the friendly American press could stand up to Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un or Xi Jinping? Of course you couldn't. So if you believe that a strong America requires a strong leader, I've got a recommendation for you. Why don't we re-elect President Donald J. Trump? And while we're on the topic, don't send her stolen valor sidekick. Send a former Marine. Send JD Vance to be vice president. We got some Marines out there. Semper Fi. Now, Kamala Harris, she gets really mad when I bring up the stolen valor of her running mate. But let me tell you why it matters. Every single person here understands why this matters. Here's the record on Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. He dropped out of the military and allowed his unit to go to Iraq without him. And he knew they were going to Iraq. He lied about it, but he knew they were going to Iraq. Even his chaplain called him a coward. And those of you who served in the military know the chaplain is the nicest person in the unit. If the chaplain is calling you a coward, you must have really screwed up. He claimed to carry a weapon in war, but you ask him, Tim, what war have you ever been in? And the answer is he's never been to a single war. He lied about it. He lied about his rank, and he stood in silence as Nancy Pelosi and a lot of journalists praised him for his service on an imaginary battlefield instead of correcting the record. What won't stolen valor Tim Walz fib about? In fact, I believe at his next speech, he's probably going to say he survived an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. I think that's what Tim Walz is going to claim next time. Now look, we don't criticize, and this is where the media is dishonest here, we don't criticize Tim Walz for his years of service in the National Guard. We condemn him for lying about that service for political gain. It's disgraceful, and nobody should tolerate it. Now, Tim Walz needs to not only explain why he abandoned his Guard unit, he also needs to explain his bizarre love affair with China. Have you seen this? This guy's been to China more than the U.S. ambassador to China. He got married in China. He visited China over 30 times. He honeymooned in China. He taught a course approved by the Communist Party in China. He even brought American high school students with him on visits to China. Now, I know, and we all know, that Kamala Harris wanted to outsource our factories and jobs to China, but I didn't expect her to outsource the selection of her running mate to China, too. But here's the problem in choosing him for vice president. It's not just about Tim Walz, it's about Kamala Harris's terrible judgment. We do not need a president with terrible judgment. We need Donald J. Trump back in the White House. Nothing matters in national security and foreign policy more than judgment, because nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows what crisis is going to erupt over the next 4 years. And I got to be honest with you, my entire adult life has been shaped by presidents who threw Americans into unwise wars and then failed to win them. And if we're being honest, it wasn't just Democrats, it was sometimes Republicans too. And what did Donald Trump do? He stood up to the chicken hawks. He bucked the foreign policy establishment. Even sometimes he resisted pressure from within his own party. In President Trump's 4 years in office, we had 0 new wars. We had peace all over the world when Donald J. Trump was president. In the Middle East, he brokered the Abraham Accords, brought stability, and created a long-term balance to Iran. In Europe, he pushed the Europeans to take more responsibility for their own defense so the United States would not have to pay for a bunch of freeloaders. We ought to focus on our own security, not subsidize European welfare. They can take care of themselves. And never forget, as much as the Democrats said that Donald Trump was somehow on the side of Russia, the only president of the last 20 years who had Russia not invade a neighbor was the presidency of Donald J. Trump. He kept Russia in check. He's the only president of our lives to do it. Under Kamala Harris, Putin invaded Ukraine. But under Donald Trump, Putin didn't do a damn thing, and that's because of strong leadership. People respected him. And that's, by the way, my friends, why we were able to defend our own border, is because Donald Trump didn't have us distracted by fighting wars that we had no business being involved in. We got to focus on our own border right here at home. That is the Donald Trump principle, and that's what we're going to bring back to the White House. It's funny, all these people said that he was going to start a nuclear war, but President Trump knew more about diplomacy than any president of the last 40 years. In Asia, he opened diplomatic talks with North Korea after a half-century of stagnation. And you remember when he went to North Korea, he met with Kim Jong-un, the leader of that country. And if you know anything about Kim Jong-un, well, how do I say this politely? Kim Jong-un doesn't miss a whole lot of meals, okay, my friends? And Trump stands there with the media and Kim Jong-un. You remember this? I'd encourage you to go look it up. And he brings the media in and he says, all right, everybody, take some photos of us, make us look nice, make us look skinny. And Kim Jong-un sat up like that. It means something to have a president who's not afraid to go into hostile territories, tell a few jokes, and actually engage in diplomacy. That preserves peace. While all these Democrats lied about Donald Trump being the candidate of nuclear war, Donald Trump is the person who prevented nuclear war. And if we're not careful, Kamala Harris is going to walk us right into nuclear war. We got to kick her out and not give her a promotion to President of the United States. And maybe the most important thing Donald Trump did is he began the process of ending America's economic reliance on China. The most important thing, because Donald Trump understands economic security is national security. The whole world knows that China doesn't have better workers than America, but they're willing to lie, cheat, and steal to win. They lied about unleashing COVID-19. They cheat and they ignore trade rules, and they steal America's intellectual property. Now, Kamala Harris lets China get away with all of it, and China Tim helps her. Donald Trump isn't going to let China steal a damn thing. He's not going to let them steal our factories, not going to let them steal our jobs, not going to let them steal the American dream from American workers. Donald Trump will not allow America to be dependent on Chinese medicine for our children. That's a big thing. You know, so much of what we put into the bodies of our children is made in China. Doesn't make any sense. And Donald Trump will tell China that if they don't stop sending fentanyl into our city, there is gonna be hell to pay. No more of that crap. We need somebody who stands up for American workers. Now, the establishment loves to complain about President Trump's approach to diplomacy. They don't like the way that he talks. Have you seen this? Why is it that our leaders are so careful with their words but so reckless with their actions? I prefer a different kind of statesmanship, one that stands up to the crowd, one that stands for American interests, and that pursues those interests ruthlessly, but also carefully, with strong words and the strongest military in the world, but with great restraint to balance it out. Donald Trump's presidency was the first disruption to the failed consensus and the terrible consequences that it wrought. So I say, let him whine about Donald Trump's tweets. Because let's be honest, folks, mean tweets and world peace has a pretty nice ring to it. I think we ought to bring it right back. We have got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to re-elect a man who's proven he's too big for the deep state bureaucracy. He's too tough for the tyrants all over the world. He was too strong even for an assassin's bullet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's return to a time when the bravest man leads this nation with strength. That man is Donald J. Trump. He was the once president of the United States, and we in North Carolina, we're going to make him the future president of the United States. God bless you, North Carolina. Thank you. Let's win this race. Let's do it together. God bless you all.